Alrighty. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Welcome to Curveball. So today is going to be such a good show because what happens when you spend over a decade climbing the corporate ladder only to realize that ladder has been leaning against the wrong building the whole time? I thought you'd like that. My guest today, Jesseca Tighe, knows that feeling all too well. Armed with a PhD in psychology, she set out to be a professor only to have the 2009 financial crisis slam that door shut, crush that dream. So she pivoted to healthcare leadership. That sounds perfectly reasonable. And spent 13 years working 24/7, answering calls, and just slowly grinding and burning out. Just when she decided, I'm going to go for it and build a life coaching business on the side, life threw her the ultimate curveball. I don't mean to laugh. I'm just so sorry. But it's just so much. And E. coli, like, what did you have to go like at the same time, like not just one. Right. I can just tell, Jesseca, you don't do anything halfway. She was stuck on the couch for 2 months where she did say she watched everything on Netflix. She had a choice, like really let the burnout win or bet on herself. So like you're probably like in a fever dream and just having these like visions. Spoiler alert, she bet on herself, launched her coaching business, and never looked back. Today, Jesseca helps people break free from that burnout, rediscover their purpose, and actually enjoy their lives again. And then she's also like a skydiver. I did not know that. You know a thing or two about facing fear head on. Jesseca, welcome to Curveball.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
So tell me about that. One of the things we were talking about before the show started is that the one common theme I'm starting to learn about people, I've interviewed about 40 people for Curveball, is that there is a point, like a very conscious and intentional point, a memorable point where someone decides, I'm going to do something. Like I am going to start this. I'm going to make meaning out of this. So many different things. So you had that while you were so sick with COVID and E. coli. I can't even imagine. So how'd you catch them, number one?
Well,
and then what was your epiphany?
Yeah. Well, I think the first epiphany was really when I started to leave and really started to do the life coaching business, which was I was, driving on my hour commute to a job that I no longer wanted. And on I-25, which if you live in Colorado, you know how dangerous that highway is. And, so I'm driving along and I see this guy in the van next to me, and it's like an HVAC air conditioning repair van. This was a small moment, but it was a big moment. I'm looking at the guys singing in the car, and he just looked so happy. And I'm like, what does he do? Wonder how long it would be to get my HVAC license. And then I have a PhD. Right? Yeah, I had committed to my education significantly. Yes. And I just finally realized I'm literally willing to do anything else. I've had it. So again, small moment, but big moment. And that's when I decided to, all right, I'm going to do what I've always done. I'm going to pivot. Because, life throws you a curveball and you got no choice. So I decided to take kind of a step back in healthcare. I went from a leadership position to more of a lower marketing role, not as on call, not so many hours. And I started, looking at my business and started building that, and then got super sick. And I just I couldn't talk. I couldn't work. I was on the couch. I had just started this new job. And I couldn't talk to people. I was, doing sales and marketing, and I couldn't talk to anybody.
So the timing of this, like with the new job, I just think is really interesting because it's here I'm pivoting, but I'm pivoting within in my unhappy circle. And then you get really almost like deathly ill.
Yeah, it was all within 3 months. All of that happened from
trying to give you a signal? Yeah.
Yeah, I do. And I think, I do somaticize stuff. So I really think that, and that's just part of my constitution and part of what my body does is, we will make you slow down.
Yes. Oh, same.
Yeah. And I think that's what happened, but I have no idea where the E. coli came from. I was never able to figure that out, but I was going to doctors. I was so sick. And this is the third time that I'd had COVID. And Because I worked in healthcare, right?
Right.
Through COVID. So of course I got it. But I had never been this sick before and I could not get well. And I finally found a naturopath and we're still friends to this day. But she did all this testing on me and she's, yeah, not only do you have COVID, but you also have E. coli poisoning. And this is why you feel so crappy.
How do they treat that then?
She put me on about 110 supplements and I did flushes and cleanses. I did red light therapy. The one thing that I did do, since I just started this job, I went ahead and quit the job because I couldn't work anyway. And I'm like, this isn't fair to anybody. And, I had a cushion. So I was like, all right, I'll be fine for a few weeks. I didn't know I was going to be on the couch for 2 months, but I was. And, but I did healing like it was my job, like literally 8 hours a day. I was like, I did salt baths. I did sound baths. I did homeopathy. I did all the supplements. I did yoga.
Like I was just Dr. Joe dispensing the shit out of myself.
Just get me better.
Meditating, journaling,
everything. And I did it like it was my job. And had I not done that, who knows how long I would have been sick. But in that period of time, what happened was I knew I wanted to work with people again. I had been a therapist prior to my healthcare career. And I was a master's level therapist and I wanted to work with people again. And this is what I really wanted to do. This is what I was put on this earth to do. So I looked at life coaching while I was on the couch watching Netflix. I'm building my life coaching business because why not? What else am I going to do? And then 3 colleagues in the healthcare business, I lost 3 people in the span of those 2 months. And it was my favorite boss of all time. He wasn't my boss at the time, but we had still kept in touch. Lost him to alcoholism. And I had no idea that he drank. And we still talked. I had no idea. And we were the same age. Another colleague who was just a few years older than me had a heart attack at 49 and left his teenage son and partner who had cancer. And then another colleague completed suicide. And these are all people in the same geographic area, in the same industry. And I'm like, it was all untreated burnout. It was all untreated mental health conditions as the result of stress and burnout. And, when I give talks on this, people who, I talk to a lot of healthcare folks, that's primarily who I work with. And they're like, I tell this story and they're like, yeah, I know exactly who you're talking about. I don't even have to say their names. And they're like, yeah. And we know so many people who have had physical ailments because of this. And they're leaving, they're leaving the planet or they're leaving the industry. And we can't afford to lose anybody or
they're just like living, they're just so unhappy. Yeah. That's just so sad.
Yeah.
I think that I was like a completely burnt out executive. I started my business because I got fired from my job. And then the company that fired me hired me as a full-time consultant and actually paid me a little bit more.
That's so funny. That doesn't make sense, but I'll take it.
I know. But I realized I was really, because people are like, why would they do that? And I was like, because I was really good at the work. Back then I was not good at the relationships. And so also the day before I got fired was my very first therapy appointment ever. I just want you to know. So
wow. What timing.
No, so funny. But here I am like 11 years later, but I will tell you that it took me about 3 years, I want to say, for me to really say I was burnt out. There was so much shame around it. And I'm curious, because I would say, I was on the roll. I was about to burn out. Like I was on the edge and and I wasn't. I was so completely burnt out.
Yeah.
And now I see it. I really recognize it. Like right down to the point that my teeth were so sensitive when I would have to go get them cleaned. It was just the most excruciating experience. Then I started my own business. No teeth sensitivity. I just think things like that are just... Yeah. Do you think that there's shame around burnout? And then why do you think there's shame around burnout?
Yeah, I think it's, for healthcare, there's internal factors and external factors. I think this is true for any industry, but this is the one that I
Right.
know. We're caregivers with a capital C. Nobody's in healthcare to, get rich. They're really caregivers. They give more than they receive. And so of course they want to care for people. And so they just end up channeling too much energy into the work and then not
Right.
getting enough reward back. And then there's the external pressures of the industry where it's always do more with less, work harder, faster, longer. And I
Right.
think that's the world that we live in. And, at least our American culture right now
Oh, yeah.
is, we, brag about long commutes and working 60 hours. And,
And my vacation was ruined by
yeah.
work. Like it's a badge of honor.
Yeah, like you're some kind of hero. And it's no, we can have a different relationship to work and we can make work for us. And, maybe people aren't in the right job, but maybe you
Right.
are in the right job and you just need to make the job right and make it work for you and
Right.
dial it back.
So something I see now that I have sort of this observational role looking into different companies, and there are times I really miss it, like when I see a team and camaraderie, and I'm just like, oh, I sort of miss having that kind of relationship.
Mhm.
But then usually one of my clients starts crying because they're so overwhelmed. And I'm like, I remember being the crying executive
Yeah.
too, but that you take on so much work, just thinking that there's going to be recognition on the other side because you're taking on so much and no one says anything. So then you take on more because you're like, surely if I do more,
Yeah.
surely they'll notice like how much work is getting done. And then they don't, and then you take on more and more. Is
Right.
that like, how do you think, how does burnout happen? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
is it a sort of a systemic kind of thing that's, I know triggers and experiences and environments would be different between different humans, but
Yeah.
is there some similarity that we all experience when we're burning out?
Yeah, I think there is. Well, let's talk about what burnout actually is, because it actually
Okay.
is a medical diagnosis. So
Really?
the WHO in 2019 made it an ICD-11 diagnosis as a workplace phenomenon. So you can actually get diagnosed with burnout, and there's three kinds. So the first one is frenetic, which is more the internal pressure. So you're channeling too much energy into your work. And then the definition is regular rewards are not enough to compensate you for that energy that you're
Mm,
putting in. Then there's worn out burnout, which is more external factors. So it's your company, your boss, the industry is putting way too much pressure on you. They're working you to the grind and you can't get out of it. That's worn out.
mhm.
And then the other one is under challenged burnout. So this is like the character Milton from Office Space, right?
Right.
There's actually under challenged where you're just kind of going through the motions, it's super monotonous, and you're just
Right.
not challenged. Those people do not call me. I get the people that
I do.
are,
Speaking of Milton, just FYI.
hey, all
Yeah.
right, I love the stapler. Oh, I need one of those. But I usually
it's
see people
it's
that
my stapler.
it's your stapler.
Yeah, it just
Don't.
it's
It's my stapler. We could
okay,
go so
continue. I'm sorry.
far. We could go so far with that joke.
Okay.
But yeah, I usually people present with a combination of both, the
Okay.
frenetic and the worn out burnout. And let me give you an example. So what I like to say is a character defect is just an asset that crosses the line. So here's what it is.
Wait, say that
Yeah.
again.
Let
So
me say it
it's
again. A character defect is just an asset that crosses the line. And
I might have to make a bumper sticker out of that.
here's trademark.
Really?
Yeah, but I'm not the first person to say that, but this is what it looks like for me personally because
Mhm.
of the life that I've led, the training that I have. I can withstand very large amounts of stress and dysfunction. That's an
Right.
asset, right? But where it becomes a character defect is all of a sudden it's too much and all of a sudden I'm not fine and there's this invisible tripwire and then I'm burnt out. I'm not fine. I can't do
Right.
this anymore. I need a day off, a bath, and a bottle of wine, and not
Yes.
necessarily in that order. So get out of my way.
Right. Right.
So that's my asset, but it crosses the line into I have absolutely no awareness of when that powder keg's going to blow.
Oh, yes.
But all of a sudden it's just too much. And that's what happens for me. It's just my chemical makeup. That's what happens. So yes, that's an asset, but I have to be very careful about my boundaries around everything so that I don't get there.
Right. So it was interesting. Excuse me. I was on a call I'm part of this community, and it was all these women. We're all entrepreneurs, and we were all just sort of laughing about the days, like when we all worked corporate and it was like working like it was, just really working crazy hours and like doing really ridiculous things, like to be there. And I just remember feeling, I know you work in healthcare, but which is a completely different next level, right, than corporate America, because you're dealing with, we know health, all that kind of stuff. But it's like I just always felt like I was letting someone down, that if I was tending to my family, I was letting work down. If I was tending to work, I for sure was letting my family down. And we were just all laughing about how that was like such a badge of honor and how we just don't even feel that anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to just think about, I don't know if I naturally created boundaries, but what's when we say boundaries, I know that just sounds so good, but like, how do you really do it? Because what do you even know you're solving for if you have boundaries? So if someone's like, if burnout's sort of this invisible thing, I think about that analogy of putting a frog in water and you just turn it up and it will just sit there and just die. That's what burnout is like to me.
Yeah.
It's sort of this silent dog whistle. And even though you don't hear it, doesn't mean it's not making a sound until it gets to the point where your health starts to break or something starts to break inside of you.
Right.
So how do you sort of gauge your burnout level? And then how do you set a boundary around that?
Yeah.
Once you have that awareness.
Yeah, there's great questions. I mean, and stress is, burnout is a stress response, first of all. But, the first step is to take it seriously because especially in our culture, we think of it as like this existential thing. Oh, that's out there.
I'm going to write this down.
Yeah, like your stress is there saying, but it's knocking on your door saying, hey, you may or may not have a cardiac event in 15 to 20 years. And you're like, whatever, I got to get to work and I have this deadline. Right. And like, we see it as something to just sweep under the rug. So I think the first step is honestly to see, okay, I am having a stress response. I am triggered, and honor it and name it for what it is. It's telling you that something's wrong because our nervous system should not be jacked up like that all the time. So that's step one. And then, the next step is, what I work with people on is really making it work for them. And I work with people who are in very high demand jobs, high stress situations. I work with people who are, caring for spouses with dementia. I work with corporate attorneys. I work with trauma nurses, like you name it, like these people who, want to love what they do, but want a different relationship to it and want to make it work for them. And what I go through with them is very specific for you personally, these micro skills that you can really fit into your day to relax, calm your brain down so that then we can actually make some decisions and then you can actually heal and recover. But you got to calm that nervous system down first because otherwise nothing's going to get in there. Nothing's going to happen. You're not going to incorporate any skills.
I don't have a mental analogy to that, but I definitely have a physical analogy to it because I'm working with a Chinese medicine doctor. So one of the things is like, I'm trying to rebuild all my strength after my brain aneurysm last year. And it's interesting because like my whole body was affected and I don't know. Anyways, what's really interesting is he's all about getting the blood flow. Like you got to get the cheap blood flow going. And what I think is really cool about that is I realize if everything is stuck, all the physical therapy I'm doing, all my yoga, everything, there's no place for the healing to go.
Right.
So the second he starts working on my feet, which he's been really helping me with, or the second I get that movement, it's like now, like I did a lot of, like I work with a rolfer and he worked on my hand for 2 hours and it was like inflating. It was like watching it inflate like a balloon. And I was like, oh, this is the coolest thing because there was no place for all the healing to go. So it was like my weeks of hand therapy were just like, here you go.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. So you're sort of creating that same space in your mind.
Yeah.
To do that. What kind of modalities do you use to work when you're working with people?
Yeah, I work with several. I'm a psychologist, so by training. So there's people come in with all sorts of stuff and all sorts of, they come in with crappy childhood stuff and they come in with, all sorts of other things. So we definitely kind of work with people and it's a highly personalized system, but I have these pillars of support where we work on, all right, let's get you some time back in your day. Let's get you some rest and recovery because that's so important. I have another physical analogy, which is, athletes. One of the cool things about the Olympics last summer when I was like watching athletes being interviewed is they talked about rest and recovery being just as important as the practice. And I'm like, that is so right. And we don't, in this culture, we don't take that seriously. We don't talk about rest and recovery. We don't talk about integrating the things that we're doing, the healing, the therapies. We're not talking about it. It's all just, no, just do in this deadline and just do and more and more. And we don't talk about actually slowing down and taking an actual break. And so that's the first part, is getting that rest, getting that recovery, figuring out how to really rest.
I even think about, like, I used to do these spin classes at our rec center. And one of the things about spin classes, you start off like in a lower gear and you just crush it out.
Yeah.
And then you recover for a few minutes and then you keep on turning it up. And what's so amazing is this is such a, I love it when our body like just sort of gives us such good clues, but you actually get stronger as the class goes on, and you're literally like ratcheting up the resistance the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that isn't, and the whole thing is the sequence of building up, recovering, building up, recovering, building up, recovering.
Absolutely. Same thing.
You take Shavasana, like I take Shavasana in between postures.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, of course. It's the same thing.
It's all around us.
It's all around us, but we don't think about it when we're at work. We don't think about, we're eating lunch at our desk and we're, while we're checking our email, and we don't actually know how to rest and recover anymore from work and burnout. But there are...
Eat just with what's around the office. Like you just have like oyster crackers from a soup you got like last year.
Totally.
Like,
oh my God. I have eaten so many expired Kind bars. Like just, jeez. Well, I worked in healthcare, so like my chef would know I was having a bad day and I'd find a plate of food. So that was one of the perks. I was like, thank you. Wow. You're amazing.
It's someone looking out for you.
That's right. Yeah, they knew. But yeah, so I work with people on that personal level, but then also work with them on, all right, let's set some boundaries at work and let's actually see, because what happens, like there's a term in psychology called behavioral drift. And what it is, it's all these little allowances that we say to ourselves, okay, I'll just check that one last email, or I'll just stay a few minutes late, or I'll just do this one thing, or I'll just check my email in the morning when I'm having coffee, or I'll just work a couple hours on Sunday so that Monday's not so crazy. And it's all these little allowances. And then before you know it, you're way off course.
Right.
And that's behavioral drift. And so what I work with people on is, what are those things that you're doing? And all right, let's start cutting them out and let's start drifting you back on the path so that you can actually rest and recover and have a different relationship and realize that, hey, you didn't work 80 hours this week and the building didn't catch fire. Like, it really is okay.
Like, I would imagine that people would feel like, I just think one of the fears I would have if it was something like I was just like, showing up, really being there, like working like 12, 15-hour days, working weekends, working on business trips, working all the time, that I would be afraid that people would think, what's she doing? It's just like a fear for people.
So common. I worked with a corporate attorney this last year, and she was great, but she told me this story about a contest in her office, and it was the jacket on the back of the chair contest. And she said it was basically, you wanted to be the first one in the morning to put your jacket on the back of your chair, and you wanted to be the last one to take it off when you leave. And I'm like, that is a horrible contest. But that was in that workplace. And that example is everywhere in every industry.
Yeah. My brother was a consultant. And so he was an associate and the partners run the projects. And there was this one partner in particular who was literally like the most emotionally abusive person. Like, she was just awful. And what was so crazy is that when she was an associate, she worked with these horrible partners. So instead of saying, I will never treat my associates the way I was treated, it was actually worse to them. Why do you think that happened?
She's a bitch. Sorry, there's no excuse for that. I'm sorry.
You heard it here right from the
I'm sorry. No, there's no, I hope I can curse a little bit on this podcast now. There's no excuse for that, because you're right. Most people who, have empathy markers will say, oh, I mean, I got yelled at. I had a boss who would lock me in her office and just scream at me. And I mean, it happens.
Yeah.
But I was like, I will never do that to anybody. First of all, I don't yell. People know I'm mad when I get really close to them and I whisper. People, they're like, oh God, she's serious.
Excuse me, like, what are you saying?
What I hear you saying is there's no excuse for that. The yelling at people is wrong. And if you don't know that, there's no hope for you. I'm sorry. These people are not calling me.
No, those two are just like, oh my gosh. Like and she really, and my brother's such a softie, but she would sometimes just send him over the edge. And I remember he did go to the doctor because he was feeling so out of sorts, and she wrote him a prescription for 3 days off work.
Yeah.
Because he had like exhaustion.
Absolutely.
And I said, what did you do? And I just crumpled it up and threw it in the backseat of my car and went back to work.
Wow.
And then he lived at the time when it was winter, and he would work literally until 2 or 3 in the morning.
Oh my God.
Home for a couple of hours. You know how cold it is. It's just,
yeah.
I've had days like that. Like I worked for a company, like when we were for a big company, we were actively like acquiring. So when we have these huge mergers, you would sometimes have nights like that you're just like, I for sure should not be driving because you've just been looking at a computer screen at a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah.
Practically. Yeah. That's just so interesting.
Right.
So you said that leaving your job wasn't just a change in your career. You're just like you're a better wife, a better mom. How many kids do you have?
Yeah, I just have one. My son is 8, so he's still little. Yeah, he's fat. He's in 2nd grade now, but yeah, he's fabulous.
Are they teaching?
I mean,
I'm such a not on. This is like a completely not even on topic, but they teach 2nd graders cursive now or no?
No. In fact, my writing is kind of like in between print and cursive, and he like can't read it. He asked me, Mom, can you please print? I was like, I'm sorry, dude. I'm sorry. Like, if I connect the Y, he has no idea what his lunch note says.
That is so funny.
Yeah.
When my son was in 2nd grade, they were really debating whether or not, and I just think there's something that's really magical that happens, that we all learn how to write the same way.
Yeah.
Becoming, you can be on forensic files and they find you because of your handwriting analysis. It all becomes so interesting.
Yeah.
It was going to be on the way out.
But, yeah.
And the reason the school board said we're going to teach cursive is so people could read like letters from
so you can read so you can read cursive. Yeah, I think it's still a skill there, and there's research on both sides, so who knows, but I want my son to read my writing, come on. But you talked about
balance. Yeah,
well, you talked about physical symptoms. About 6 months in, I realized like I was starting to get my first clients. It was really starting to get rolling, and I realized, oh, my hair's not falling out anymore. And I would feel my nails and I'm like, oh, the ridges in my nails are gone. I thought that was just like, oh, I'm dehydrated, or it was the COVID or who knows or whatever. But like I was like, oh, I don't have any ridges in my nails anymore. So these physical symptoms that I was having, I was no longer having. And,
your body gives you so many clues like that. We're just like, well, I'm dehydrated or I'm this. And it's so easy. Like, when I said, oh, I just have really sensitive teeth, my parents had really sensitive teeth. So I'm just like, well, of course. And then I remember going to get a cleaning like the year, because of course I started my own business. I don't go to the dentist for 3 years. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to go. And so I was so like anxious because it was like, and they're just, we can numb you. And I said, no, let's just see how it goes. And then my teeth were no longer sensitive. And I'm like, I could chew ice right now if I wanted to.
Wow, that's crazy.
No, which is amazing. And that was all just... That's the only thing that really changed is my job situation.
Yeah. Your body knows there's definitely physical symptoms that occur for sure when you're in burnout for all sorts of reasons. And it's kind of personal for everybody.
Right. Yeah. I really get that. I know that there's not one size treats all, but I worked with a trauma coach a couple summers ago.
Yeah.
Something I've never done. And because, I just always felt, I grew up with a lot of alcoholism. And one of the things I realized is I would give like the alcoholics a lot of hall passes. Oh, Dad did that because like he was drinking, and so as the kid in that situation, you sort of learn like how to resolve it, make it right. And so like I couldn't have my day in court with my dad. He died. But then like through trauma therapy and like tapping, we did tapping. That was
Yeah.
really,
Yeah. EFT.
oh my God.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. I loved it. And I'd done it before, but I love the act of the EFT because there's a definite method to it, where you get everything out. And I just remembered, like, there were times I could go back and think about a memory where I could get upset about it. Like I could start to cry about it. I was just actually
Yeah.
telling my husband a memory and I'm like, God, I can't believe like I didn't bring this up with my trauma coach. Like it's such a big thing. But I was like crying about it because I was going back to that time and I was just like, but I remember telling this my coach, I was like, this is so interesting. I said, because I'm trying to sort of get back to that emotion. Like I'm trying, but I can't. It's like a vapor. It's gone now.
Yeah.
Oh, you just developed a new neural pathway. And I'm like,
That's right.
stop it.
Yeah. I talk about that with people too. It's really important to develop those good coping skills. But that's how you do it, is that neural pathway. And, if you look at it, like the analogy that I like is if you come up to a field with a bunch of tall grass and you've got to get through it. The first time you go down a path, you're tromping around, you might be cutting it. It's really slow. It's really arduous. And the next time you go down, it's a little bit less. It's
Right.
a little bit less hard. And the next time you go down, it's a little bit easier. And then before you know it, it's a super highway of a good habit. And both good and bad habits are built this way. So you really can build better habits on that new neural pathway.
Well, even release things that you just think are like, just how would you not, like, how would that not be part of your fabric? Like, how would this not be part of,
Yeah.
it's something that's really significant too. Oh my gosh, that is so interesting. I think about like when there's a lot of snow and you're not wearing the right shoes and so you take steps and then you keep on stepping.
Yeah.
Before, like I just did that in my backyard not too long ago. That is so funny.
Yeah.
You got your PhD in psychology and then years of leadership experience, right? So
Yeah.
you must have just been like, oh, here's my little own laboratory. But like, how does that come into your coaching style? Is there a certain kind of person you really love to work with? Because, do you like to work with healthcare people?
Yeah.
Or you said you work with people with high pressure jobs. Tell me a little bit about the kind of people you work with and how that shows up in your work.
Yeah. So people really find me because of they want more work-life balance, or maybe they think they want a different career. They're done. They're like me in the car watching the HVAC guy. They're like, I've had it. Like I'll get calls from nurses going, I'm ready to give up my license. I need to start a food truck. I will literally do anything else.
You to start a food truck.
I mean, somebody said that to me and I'm like, okay, I can ruin cereal, but I'm out of ideas. So people kind of come to me for that reason. And so we work, but very often, we really look at what this has done to their mental health and what this has done to their makeup and why their triggers are there, because of childhood stuff, because of course that stuff needs to come in. And, really it's about, talking with people, but I love working with people that are in, high demand situations and helping them transform and finally take care of themselves. I love coaching people to just be more effective in their business, how to communicate better, because language counts for a lot.
Oh, yes.
And how do you do that? And I love working with new leaders who are like, I just got this promotion and I have no idea what I'm doing. I love those people. And then I have a very small part of my practice, which is working with people who had a parent with a personality disorder, which is also my recovery story.
Very specific.
Very specific. And yeah, my
disorder.
Yeah, my mom had narcissistic personality disorder. And
that is like when your mom's a narcissist, like that is extra rough.
It's well, when you grow up knowing, and very similar to alcoholic parents, actually, where you are both the problem and the solution. It's just that I couldn't blame it on anything. And there was never a break. Like she was never like sober from her narcissism.
Right.
Yeah.
How were you when you figured that out? Were you in psychology school and you're like, oh, I just diagnosed mom?
So we kind of talked before about me losing my father, who I was really close to, from a brain aneurysm. I always say he died and left me alone with the crazy parent. But it was really around that time. I was in college. I was, starting grad school, and I realized, oh, without my dad, this is who my mom is. And, kind of looking back at my childhood, there were a lot of pieces that really fell into place around my maladaptive coping skills and the things that I had to do in order to keep her happy.
Right.
And it was all about her and not really about me, and all these things that didn't really make sense to me because I'm just not a narcissist. So like it just, and there were all these things from my childhood that never really made sense. And it was all around that.
Like I was telling my husband, he's like, how do you, because I said, the crazy thing is like when things are like crazy when you're little, you really just don't know any different.
No.
And it's not until, even though you're like at friends' houses and everything, I said, it wasn't until I was in probably my mid to late 20s where I was just like, none of this is normal.
Yeah.
And how is this normalized too? So I think you just have to have context for life and humans, and then you have enough experience where you know how the world really is, and you're just like, wait a second.
No, I can tell you the moment. I remember being 13 and I was talking with, we were at a dinner party and my mom was talking to some friends, and I remember standing next to her and I remember her saying, my daughter is the most important thing to me in the whole world. And I knew she was lying. And I remember that moment, and I'm like, I know that's not true. The most important person to her is her. And it wasn't necessarily hurtful or heartbreaking. It was just like, she's freaking lying. And that's kind of how I realized, like, there were these little places throughout my life where I'm like, that's just not true. Like that, I know my mom is sitting here saying that this was my experience, but I know that's not how it happened. So I had enough of myself and enough of of an ego structure, probably from my dad, to realize, all right, that, this is BS. But I didn't really realize until he was actually gone that she, really had this huge impact. And it wasn't until I learned and I was in school and I'm like, I know you're not supposed to diagnose your parents. They tell you that in school, but this is hard.
You're just like, I can't help it.
Can't help it. This explains my entire life.
It must have just been like, when you don't know what something is and then you have a name for it too.
Right.
It's just, oh my gosh, it just must be like just so much better. So do you have good boundaries how have you created boundaries around that relationship?
Well, so she actually passed away in June. So but what I didn't do a good job, honestly, of creating boundaries around her. So I tried to, so she moved in with us the last year of her life.
Are you going to write?
Because I was trying, I know, I'm so embarrassed.
Oh,
I know, I was trying to be a good daughter and do the right thing. I'm her only child. Right. So it's only me. I don't have siblings. So my dad's gone. It was me. And yeah, we renovated our basement and she moved in and it was hell on earth. And it was the worst mistake I've probably ever made in my life. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she ended up, spending her last days elsewhere because of, health stuff. But, it really was. I did not think that through. I'll just be honest.
Well, no, because it's like I just think honestly, I just want you to be tender with yourself just a little bit, because it's like your job as a kid from a really young age, and you don't even know you're doing this, is to make things okay. There was a time like I had this one client who really just went dark on me. Like we were working great, and then all of a sudden she calls me and it was just awful. And I was just like so caught off guard. And I said, oh, you're so lucky I'm a child of alcoholics, so I performed to make things all right. Because I was so that's just how you were trained.
Absolutely.
And those seconds deep,
it was, well, and I knew who she was.
Goes deep. It's so wired into. There have been times where I'm like, is this me? Like sometimes my coping skills are so ingrained that I have to stop and ask, is this actually me or my coping skill?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I do too. And, her moving in and then out, what I took on is I'm like, okay, well, if she targets me, I know how to handle that. But what she started to do was targeting my son.
Oh, stop.
And I went all mama bear and I was like, oh, hell no. Mm-mm. You are out of here. And so that was a boundary. Yeah. So we ended up asking her to leave, and that was messy. but because, that's what she makes life. But it was, I got to experience how some of this old stuff from my childhood came up for me, and I got to work with it again in a different way.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that happened, because I was really able to let a lot go. And then after she ended up passing away, then I was really able to let a lot of it go.
Yeah. Isn't that just really amazing?
Yeah.
You have this, that is just, I just literally, like, just when you were saying that, like, I literally could feel like just.
Yeah. It really lifted. Yeah.
Really, really.
Yeah.
That's so wonderful. Okay, so Jesseca, people are sitting there and they're so burnt out. They're just like, oh my gosh, I got to work with Jesseca Tighe. How do they get in touch with you? Where can they find you? What can they do?
Yeah. So my website is Solutions for Health. So SOUL.
Oh my God, that's
FOR. Yes.
Site envy.
Yeah, Solutions for Health. I'm also, Jesseca Tighe or Solutions for Health on all the things. And you can,
which it could have been, but it's Tighe.
I know.
It's just so funny because it's like someone's like, that word does not look right. They're like, you don't need a G and an H. Someone's like, that makes no sense. Higgy. They're like, no, we just won't pronounce them.
Yeah, no, yeah. We just need one more letter. Yeah, so that
we're just.
Yeah, but you can book. I do free consultations. You can book right on my website. You can book right on my LinkedIn. So yeah, come find me. It's free. Let's talk about how we can work together and figure it out.
Oh my gosh, I just feel like this has been a tonic. Like I just took a shot of cava.
Oh, thank you.
Really great. So thank you so much, Jesseca.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a blast.